Welcome to Office Hours by Triple X Church. I'm your host, Carl Thomas. I'm a pastor, certified neurohealth coach, and a guy who frankly struggled with a lot of the stuff we're going to be talking about today for over 20 years until I found freedom over a decade ago. In today's episode, we are going to be jumping in and answering this question. How can I stop masturbation and looking at porn when I was sexually abused as a child? That's what I will be discussing today, so make sure you hang in there with me. Recognize that no questions are off the table here, and I'm going to be as honest with my answers as I possibly can be, so don't get offended. So, without any further delay, let's jump in. Okay, so this question came into our Office Hours page. This young man wrote, I was sexually molested as a 9-year-old, and I've been masturbating since. How can I stop? And, man, reading questions like this that come in it's really hard. It's a tough situation. I feel so bad for, these people who are hurting, who've been harmed and experienced so much trauma. And it's a rough situation, but I understand people need answers, and I'm not a therapist, so I'm just going to try to give you some direction here. But from what I have read and what I understand, first of all, understand that you are not alone in this, okay? Many people have experienced abuse. And yes, they also have turned to porn and masturbation as a result of that trauma. Part of the reason for this is because of the tremendous violation of trust that occurs in an abuse situation. A lot of the times, it's family members or someone really close to the victim. And these predators generally will groom their victims and position themselves as some kind of emotionally available source that can come across as very loving, very caring, very empathetic, and just someone that the child usually feels like they can trust. And so they build up these really strong bonds before the abuse happens. Of course, then the abuse happens, the trauma occurs. And then years later, you find yourself acting out. And the question is, well, why is that the case? Well, there's a lot of, this is a very deep topic. So again, I'm not a therapist, but in a nutshell, first of all, very often porn is used in these abuse scenarios. Okay, so yes, touching and all this other stuff, but a lot of times the abusers will make their victims or invite their victims to watch porn or look at sexually suggestive materials as part of the process, right? As part of the grooming, kind of warm them up to the idea that, hey, this type of touch is okay. It's natural. You shouldn't resist it. It's okay. You're safe with me. So consequently, victims of abuse will often gravitate towards these unwanted and unhealthy sexual behaviors like porn because, well, it's familiar and it helps them recreate some of the original pleasurable neurochemical experiences that happened when they were being groomed by their abusers. So again, if they, in those days leading up or months or years, whatever, leading up to the actual abuse, if they felt a lot of love, if they felt a lot of trust, if they felt feelings of acceptance from their abuser, right? These things are all very pleasurable emotional experiences that we as human beings crave, right? We want to feel safe. We want to feel love. We want to feel accepted. And so even though there's trauma, even though a lot of times we can look back and say, I can't believe that person did it to me, there's still something inside that says, man, I really do though miss those feelings, right? And our brain's kind of crazy that way. It can recall these pleasurable experiences. And so if something like porn, right, because you were watching it with your abuser leading up to the abuse, or maybe even throughout the abuse, if you watch it now, your brain can make that connection and say, hey, you know what? This kind of felt good back then. And well, it feels kind of good right now because it can recall back to those days of acceptance, of love, of just complete safety, right? So that's why you're there. And I understand it's a very difficult situation. But at the end of the day, what really is key here is that you're going to have to get some professional help, okay? The reason you're going through this stuff has to do with severe psychological trauma, okay? You were abused. You were betrayed. You were victimized. That stuff just doesn't go away, right? You have to deal with it. And so saying, hey, I just don't want to look at porn. I'm just going to try to stop. I'm just going to try to stop. That's not going to work, right? That's willpower. That's not dealing with the real elephant in the room, which is the fact that you have this abuse that happened and you need to deal with it, right? So you're definitely going to need to get some sort of professional help, I would say. Obviously, there's courses and books on there. I would recommend Jay Stringer's book, Unwanted. He dives into this topic quite a bit. But even then, this is really difficult stuff to process on your own. And that's why I would say you should definitely deal with some sort of professional therapist that's going to be able to walk you through some of this stuff and help you deal with the wounds of the past. And if you deal with that pain and that trauma, it should help you move past these unwanted sexual behaviors that you are currently struggling with. So I hope that helps. Again, I'm not a therapist. I can only kind of point you in the right direction, but I hope you found some of that useful. If you have a question for me and you want to ask it, go to xxchurch.com/office-hours and submit your question, and I will answer it in an upcoming episode. So that's it for now. Have a great weekend, and I will catch you next week.